Welcome to Africa Talk Multimedia Network. FCBA Akinwanda speaking. This talk show has been held in Egypt for years back, and we're having the chapter here in Nigeria. And this talk show is going to be an intro for this foundation in Nigeria. But before I proceed to tell you more about this talk show today, I would like to welcome by my right hand side and my left hand side, Mrs. Abosede Adilaja.
I greet you all. I am Abosede Adilaja, a journalist.
I say hello to every one of us. My name is Ayo Meji, a head coach and a counselor.
Well, this talk show is actually based on teaching profession, looking at teaching profession in Nigeria, with additional with the pandemic, ongoing pandemic that we have all over the world. COVID-19 has actually contributed a lot to the world, and whether positively or negatively, and this is why we are here this day. So I would like you, Maya, to tell us your opinion concerning the ongoing pandemic before we look straight to our mentors.
We all know that even children knows what is going on. It hit our country in the month of March. I think the first case was recorded in March, and since then it's been on and on. But we thank God that by His grace it's been subsided. So many people have been tested positive, and at the same time so many have been discharged. We thank God for this. It has affected so many professions. It has affected businesses, goods and services. It has affected even relationship, family background, and all those. As I'm talking to you, so many family members can no longer hug, shake, or do all sorts of things they usually do in common. Even gatherings somehow have been affected. But thank God, gradually it's easing up.
The pandemic has put positive and negative effects. But let me pick it from the side of the family. The pandemic affected a lot of families, like my other colleague said. It compelled parents to stay home by force and by fire. Somehow, husband and wife who are always jumping out of the house in the morning were compelled to stay at home, at least for the first 3 months when it was tough. That kind of affected their purses somehow, where they don't know how the children were feeding before. Daddy had jumped out by 5 o'clock. Now he had to stay at home and see the day-to-day life of the children. It also affected parent relationship, neighbors, especially where the siblings have not always been together. Now everybody were forced to come home, university, secondary, primary, and there was a lot of jam in the home. But thank God that we are all learning. The pandemic opened our eyes to a lot of economic crisis that concentrating on one means of livelihood was very dangerous. So families are learning not to put all their eggs in one basket to avoid such crisis next time.
We see the pandemic COVID-19 on private schools. So, Mommy, Mrs. Abosede Adilaja, do you still think that do you still consider teaching job a profession to be reliable on?
Why not? Naturally, everybody is a teacher in one way or the other. All of us instruct our younger ones at home. In churches, mosques, in religious settings, you instruct one person or the other. So naturally, you are a teacher. And if you are a good person, you desire somebody to make it in life. You are a teacher, because one way or the other, your life is influencing others. You are a teacher. But come to teaching as a profession, it means that somebody somewhere has undergone trainings to be a teacher. teacher's work, we should know that it moves life. For instance, when before a child is registered in school, he knows little. But by the time he or she is enrolled and handed over to a teacher, the process begins. And gradually you begin to mold the life of the person. You begin to shape it in a way that in the future, people will sing praises of whosoever has done that. Teaching is a profession in the sense that apart from, there are two categories of teachers. Some teachers are naturally born teachers, whereas some have gone through trainings. All of them are good. And if it is well utilized, you see the beauty of teaching. We cannot say that teaching, because of the pandemic, that teaching should not be regarded as being reliable or not. No, it depends on the way you handle it. Life itself is revolving. If you look at every sector now, you discover that the use of ICT is taking effect. In our days, when we were going to school, we go in what they call portmanteau. Your cortina in those days. And maybe if you don't have a portmanteau, you go with a big bag. By the time you get to school, there is a chalkboard. And teachers make use of so many things which are no longer in vogue. If you are going to school now, you are with a portmanteau, people will look at you twice. If your bag is too heavy on you, people will think, there is nothing wrong with you. But we thank God that all those ones are being replaced gradually. So teaching as a profession is good, it's still reliable, in the sense that not everybody can be entrusted to be in that profession. Some people have passion. One thing you should know, that apart from teaching, any profession you find yourself, you should have passion for it. Not because you are hungry, there's no job, let me go for teaching. No, you should have passion for it, and it's that passion that will be driving you, so that regardless of the situation you find yourself, regardless of the challenges, you will know that there will always be a way out. So teaching can still be regarded as a reliable profession.
The teaching profession, like my other guest has said, is as old as life itself. It's always reliable. It will always be relevant and needed at any point in time. Even Jesus himself was and is still a teacher. He's still teaching. It's just that in the physical sense, the teaching profession is evolving from the blackboard in the class, and the student is becoming a virtual teaching, such that you don't necessarily have to be in a physical class before you can teach. You can teach across the globe. The pandemic has really taught us that we can take teaching to any level as long as we are IT conscious, we are IT compliant. You can teach anywhere, anytime. Because we're not used to the IT world or the virtual teaching before, that was why the pandemic kind of affected the physical classroom. But thanks to those schools that quickly picked up, and they did a lot of virtual teaching during the pandemic. So for such schools, their children are not behind at all. In fact, they are current and they are up to date. So the teaching profession will always be relevant. Although economically, they might have been affected. That was part of what I was saying before, that the pandemic had taught us that we should not stick to only one method of doing things. We should be global in our outlook as teachers.
Thank you so much, ma'am. As the pandemic takes its role on teachers and owners of private schools, well, what are the possible ways that we can make the teachers to be more committed to the profession nowadays?
There are so many ways. One thing we should establish is that the person that wants to be committed, is the person ready? If the answer is yes, then there are so many ways to make teaching interesting. For instance, this is an atmosphere. If you teach in this kind of atmosphere, whatever message you are passing across will equally go a long way. But when the environment is somehow, when you cannot even rely on that environment, for somebody to be a teacher, you have to, to digest, You have to think, you have to research. But when the environment is not conducive, what are you going to do? There are some schools, when you enter the classrooms, the teacher's seat and table will just be in a corner. The teacher will not sit in a good position. At the same time, the fear the school or the owner of the school, especially in private schools, the kind of fear they are creating, some of them are creating in teachers, it makes them to tremble. No. As you expect the teacher to pamper those children, teachers too need pampering. They need to be encouraged. They need to be trained and retrained. There is no way, you cannot tell me that the knowledge you have before the pandemic is the knowledge you want to come and adopt now. It won't work because so many things have taken place. The children, they have been exposed to so many things during the stay at home, during the lockdown, when the pandemic was still much. So you have to study them first so that you know what to do. So, and as a teacher is doing that, the school should also encourage them. Thank God for Lagos State government that has sent teachers on training, it's not for 6 weeks or so. They were trained in various categories that even their mode of dressing has changed. So a teacher should be encouraged, should be pampered as well, should be trained. Then what about remuneration? So many schools, the amount they are offering teachers is nothing to write home about. If you want teachers to put in their best, you have to. For instance, when you have 10 children in a class, and you cannot spare the school fee of one child to pay a teacher, you know, how do you want the teacher to feel? Children a lot, they discuss in the classroom. My mommy pays so amount. My daddy sends so amount to the school. When the teacher is saying that, and perhaps the teacher's salary is only 5,000, 10,000 naira, what do you want the teacher to do with it? For a teacher to be presentable, the teacher must dress well. But when the remuneration is not commensurate, do you want him to appear naked? No. For a teacher to be presentable, you have to pay him or her well. Then this training and retrainings we are talking about, it requires money. To buy a book, a textbook, it requires money. To go for research requires money. No teacher can stay in his room and say that he will conduct all the research in this world. He or she has to move around. What is school doing about it? To motivate the teacher, to encourage them, to give them, to even equip them, to encourage them, to give them necessary attention they need so that they will put in their best. You can't tell me that you are taking care of a teacher, you are doing what you are supposed to do, and the teacher is sitting back, will not do the necessary things. Only few teachers can do that. So I want to call on owners of schools to encourage teachers. As you want to pamper your students, pamper your teachers, and you get the best out of them.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Mommy and Yomiche, looking at the remote areas of the teaching line nowadays, you made mention of something the other time. You said that has actually helped in one way or another. Can you tell us more about it?
A teacher, not just a teacher, to continue to be relevant, you need to keep learning. Because the day any man stops learning is the day that individual dies. And if you are in the teaching profession, you cannot afford to stop learning. Learning goes on until the day you kick the bucket and go home. Now, just to buttress what the last speaker said, a teacher cannot but update himself or herself all the time. Thank God for e-library. Thank God for Google Class. Thank God for IT. That you don't necessarily have to travel as such. If you have access to the IT world, you can read a lot of e-books. You can consult e-libraries to update yourself as a teacher. Where a teacher that has a calling to be a teacher, who has passion for teaching, will do better, much better than those who went in the teaching line because of money. Some people find themselves in the teaching profession because they could not find what they are looking for. So I want to implore as many people who came into the teaching profession because it's their calling, because it's their passion, not to be discouraged because of poor payments from proprietors or proprietresses, because it actually depends on the area. For people who are in rural area, even government cannot do much. It's only government that can come to such areas and help us set up labs, standard libraries, and the like. The proprietresses in the local area, I pray that as government is helping to take care of people because of this pandemic, they will look into those schools who are in private, who are in rural areas, to update, to help them upgrade their teachers, and whatever way the government can assist them, so that everyone will be on the same page. That will go a long way to bail us out of obscurity and make our children to be up to date.
You know, I was with her proprietress days ago, and I talked about how she was able to cope during the pandemic. But she made mention of the school was crowded, and the teachers were so calling her for money, and things were so bad. So I want to ask, that doesn't mean during the pandemic the teaching profession were the one that's deeply affected. Am I right?
I think why you want to mention teachers is because it has to do with the upbringing of children. It has to do with impartation of life. That is why it is so. It is people at hand. That's why it's so glaring that teaching is seriously affected. I have a friend teacher that the first time he will enjoy the job was during the lockdown, because he quickly applied his senses and went on online training, online teaching. So he was able, through that, he was able to get so many children. And some of the children, they were outside Nigeria. You know, assuming he was doing physical training, there's no way you pick all of them. But he was able to pick them, and before you know it, parents admire his teaching style, and they told others. So they started connecting. I think the best money he made in his life was through this.
Wow.
Because at a time, parents who were outside Nigeria, they were paying him in big, they appreciated him. And
foreign currency.
Yes, when you are impressed, you can go a long way, especially when it has to do with your children. So the guy, he was even telling me that I wish this thing continues like this. Yes, right?
Oh yeah.
So as I'm telling
everyone is praying to use it.
I wish it continues, because he was making it.
He wasn't having to run around before making money.
He would just, all he did then was to change his phone, then buy more data, and was connecting. You know, in some cases then, you see him here and there. I want to play with Mr. Lagbaja. I want to play with this family. But during the lockdown era, that one reduced, because he was taking some children in the morning, another set in the evening. So that thing really occupied him to go through the scripts, the assignments, all those things really occupied him. And guess what? He also changed his friends, because those who he was moving with, they could no longer measure up, so he had to, some of them voluntarily dropped on the way. And this new set of friends, they are really inspiring him. So what's the question again?
So does it mean that teaching line, as in teaching profession, were the one that were deeply affected?
Yes, it was really affected. At the same time, so many people learned. They learned from it. There's some schools in my area. By the time school resumed, the teachers were nowhere to be found. I got to a particular school, when the teachers resumed, they said, excuse me, you can no longer continue. It's like, they got another idea. But I had to encourage the woman that, don't worry, move ahead. Those that didn't show up again means that their passion maybe has been dropped, has been lost or something. But later, maybe the following week, she was able to get another set of teachers, and the school is doing well. One thing I want to advise owners of school is that don't go into school business if you are not prepared. If we start moving around the streets in Nigeria, you will find all manner of schools. Some in shops, some in one room, some in room and parlor. If you are not prepared to impart life, there's no essence for delving into that profession. The profession should be left in the hand of the serious-minded people, those who want to impart lives, those who have passion for the profession, those who want to damn the consequences and say they want to forge ahead regardless of all odds. You can find out that the real teachers, they see the opportunity of the pandemic to learn more, to research, to even train online. You know, there were lots of trainings, virtual trainings, and many teachers keyed into, and it's really helping them. In our days, there's nothing like, sound method was very scarce.
Based on your point, Ma, would you think the teachers who opted out of the teaching profession during pandemic, should we blame them? Because probably they were stranded, they look for greener pasture, they don't know what to do. So should we blame them for this reaction they did?
You know, like I said earlier, it's not only the teaching profession that was really affected, it was mostly affected. But unfortunately, some teachers, they ease out. They didn't resume when the school eventually resumed, when schools eventually resumed. Anyway, I still maintain that everything we do in life, we have to suffer passion. There should be something driving you. When there is nothing driving you, in that profession you find yourself, one way or the other, even without the pandemic, you just quit. But when the passion is driving you, when you look at the children, first of all, why did you go into teaching? I've said it, I've repeated it. Why did you choose teaching as a profession? Did you choose it because there is nothing to eat? Or you chose it because you wanted to impact life? And with time, the joy of every teacher is to see the children blossoming, doing great, and that is usually the joy. That usually brings motivation. When there is passion, it will drive you, regardless of the pandemic, though it was tough. So many families, so many teachers, not only teachers, so many people could not make ends meet. And at the end of the day, so many teachers opted out of the profession. Do they have passion? There should be a particular thing that was driving them. So many people occupy themselves. I mean teachers. Some teachers see the occasion to occupy themselves, maybe to source for means of livelihood. And at the end of the day, they drop that and still return to teaching. But there are some that didn't return. It depends on what the motivation, it depends on what was driving them. Then how did the owners of school treat them? Some owners of schools, they tried. They reached out, there were palliatives, but some could not meet up. Why? Because maybe there were so many deaths. So I don't want to blame the teachers for opting out. At the same time, I don't want to say that what they have done is correct. It depends on the passion, on the motivation, on why they found themselves in the teaching profession.
Thank you so much, Ma. So, are we saying that, as in for the government, looking at the government's area, so the government have to close down schools?
The pandemic is not what we make government close down schools, because the pandemic affected virtually every area of life. So many businesses were shut down. And if the father who is an industrialist could not go to work, the mother who is a teacher could not go to work, and children must eat because they didn't send you on errand. They must eat. Let's put clothing aside. They must eat, and landlords must be paid. That drove some people to look elsewhere. You needed to get to the market. The market became fuller. Every nook, cranny and corner in the market became shops. And you see whole families, father, mother, children, come to sell, because that was the only industry that was open. Probably some people have never thought of going into business, but the pandemic compelled them to become shop owners and Indomie sellers. Going back to the class, might have become, so I can make so much money. For people who went into teaching not
That
because of the
passion.
passion, who went there because they couldn't find any other thing doing. But somehow, for some people who went into education because of passion, inability to afford Android phones, they might want to be up to date, but where the finance is not there to upgrade themselves, it might have been a handicap. If such people find themselves in areas where the community could help, the government could give palliative as a helping hand, it might help them to continue in the teaching profession. The private schools that were a bit average continued because they quickly plugged into the virtual school. That actually helped my own children. We spent so much on data, and my phone was on duty 24/10. So, like I said, the pandemic opened our eyes to a lot of things, that we can homeschool our children, not necessarily having to expose them to children from all areas of life. We can homeschooling became so obvious during the pandemic that everybody do not have to be on the road running, risking life and property. But then that's another topic for another day.
Time.
I pray that the government will help school owners who lived in areas where parents could not afford to pay because all businesses were shut down. And as life begins to pick again, I believe that the teaching profession will not remain the same. It can never remain the same. It has taken another shape.
Let's not forget the fact that there are so many schools, and the government cannot reach out to everybody. It's impossible. So school owners who knows they are not supposed to be in that profession should give you to the serious-minded one, so that the government can reach out to at least 60% of the schools. Then if you don't have a particular equipment, don't shy out. Reach out to your colleagues. There are associations of school owners. If you don't have a particular equipment, you can reach out to your colleagues, and maybe you arrange for a particular period where you can take your children to them to go and learn if you know you can't afford it. But the issue is be serious-minded in the school business. I know with time things will fall into shape.
Thank you so much, Mars. I really appreciate this time. Okay, so for my people watching us, I hope this points of views that our mommies, misses and the misses have been able to discuss here has helped in one way or another. So to call it all a day, I would like to say for all of you, maybe you've been a teacher before and you find it difficult to resume back to school, or have you seen yourself or discovered your talents, or you see that business area is where you fall into, I will say, or you think that you want to go in to learn a trade. So I will advise all of you watching that if you have any challenge in terms of that, you can reach our telephone number shown for you on the screen, so that we can be able to connect you to the right people. Maybe you don't have money to learn something and you just don't want to sit down home or find yourself in any fraudulent act. Do not do that. Instead of doing that, you need to learn a trade. Maybe you're not qualified for teaching line again, so go for trading or go for whatever you find yourself good at or passionate at. So I will say you can contact us. All our details shown for you on the screen, but I will repeat our phone number. Our telephone number is +234 7041492412. I repeat, +234 7041492412. You can reach us through this telephone number, and all our details are shown for you on the screen. I want to appreciate you for coming to Africa Talk this day, Ma. Thank you so much, Ma.
You're welcome.
So what is your advice to a quest for destiny out there that is looking for how to survive? A quest for destiny, maybe do not know what to do again and looking for where to survive. What is your advice or point of view, or advice rather, to such?
If Christ can make ways in the wilderness,
Don't give up.
do anything. Don't give up. Assure yourself, be confident that you will make it in life. That is the first message If you lose hope, nobody will give you that hope. Be encouraged because you will make it.
Keep looking up. The sun will shine brighter. And don't keep to yourself. Speak out. Reach out to others in your community, in the church, old friends, old classmates. Just reach out. But don't forget to talk to God. He's the one that holds the key in his hand. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. I appreciate you for coming to Africa Talk today. And thank you all for watching. This is Epsiba Akiwande, the CEO of Africa Talk Multimedia Network Worldwide. Here we go. Watch out. Thanks.